Well, I came up with an analogy for the match. It is the Bill Goldberg of pay-per-view matches.
And you see him going like this with his arm, holding it
Mm-hmm.
up, putting it in place, and then he whacks it right off there. So the Undertaker actually relocates Mick Foley's shoulder with the stairs.
Say right off the bat that I feel sorry for every other wrestling match that was on King of the Ring 1998 because they have been overshadowed. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Raw is Ginger. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Raw is Ginger, another new show on the Ginger Media Limited slate where we discuss professional wrestling. I am the pilot host for this one, Andrew Durning, as you know, because this will be getting passed over to my co-pilot, my commander-in-chief, the number one, Kevin Tierney. Kev, how you getting on, man?
I'm getting on good. Good.
Yeah,
Excited to be working on new projects.
Yeah, I think it's the first time we worked on it, like on a project together in 2023.
It is.
Because you've been flying solo with Gentle Dorks podcast. You've been doing really well. Got to say, your videos have been great.
Yeah, 2 videos down already. Planning my third. Should be recording that Sunday, possibly Monday, because I'm not going to have much time at the weekend.
Well,
it's the missus' birthday on Saturday, so.
By the time this recording goes out, I'll probably been and gone. So happy birthday to Kevin's missus after the fact. So we thought, because it's a pilot episode, what do we want to do with the wrestling channel? Well, we'll let you know that we are wanting to cover a lot of different things. We want to, in particular, cover the Scottish indie scene, like the independent wrestling circuit. But we thought we'd start off by diving into some classic matches, some ones, personal favorites from our own back catalogs. So this is one of the most infamous matches in the WWF/WWE canon. It is one that's instantly referred back to in terms of major bumps. And that is the 1998 King of the Ring Hell in a Cell match between The Undertaker and Mick Foley, which was held at the Civic Center in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Kev, this is one of your choices, so give the audience a little rundown as to why you chose this one.
Well, basically, I remember watching it. I still remember sitting watching it live because I would stay up on the Sunday. We had Sky, so we could watch them all. And I'd go into school the next day, tell everybody about it. And like, oh no, we need to go see it, because they didn't actually watch it live. They would watch the replays and stuff. And I was telling people like, what? I was like, I chucked him off the top. Like, what? But it was like 2 minutes into the match, and they're fighting on top of the cage, and Undertaker's chucked Mick Foley off. Like, did he die? Like, no, he got up. He stretchered away for a bit, and then they brought him back, climbed up, and then they chucked him through the actual cell into the ring. Like, what? But did they stop the match? No, they just kept going.
Yes, it's but now we can say it's Mick Foley.
It's Mick Foley, aye.
It was just Mick Foley. There was no other way around it. I mean, I was the kid that our parents knew the guy that could get you the chipped box. We were literally the Kevin Bridges 40 quid. So we had that, and I would like now I'm an old man, but I was an old man even back then when I was like, because you were what, 15?
I was 15 then, aye.
So I would have been 10. So I was even an old man back then. And I was just like, right, I'm just gonna get the video recorder set up. For anybody who doesn't know what a video recorder is, I'm sorry. Set it for and it was when you had the timer on the video recorders. So set the timer for 1 a.m. our time. Off to bed, went to school the next day, tried to avoid as many spoiler warnings as I could. Because they're like, did you watch? Don't tell me. I want to watch it later after dinner. Watched it after dinner with, I think it was my brother at the time. I think he was still liking the wrestling at that point. And it was just one of those ones that it was also like, what just happened here?
I know.
Well, it's very, very interesting. And I'll say right off the bat that I feel sorry for every other wrestling match that was on King of the Ring 1998 because they have
Yep.
been overshadowed majorly. I mean, this is a pay-per-view
Yep.
where Ken Shamrock won the King of the Ring.
Yep.
Out of all the people
Against The Rock.
Against The Rock, when he was still actually when he was The Rock, not Rocky Maivia, not heel Rock, not none of that. Like he was the
Nation of Domination
that was
Rock.
Nate. Yeah, well, he was still a bit of a heel then. So, but Nation of Domination Rock, in fairness, what in a match where Stone Cold Steve Austin was headlining against Kane for the WWF Championship at the time, with one of the most ridiculous clauses in the match, like a first blood match, and nothing in Kane has any skin where you can see blood.
Yeah.
Well, you could tell because I checked and like the people that were the creative team behind this involved Vince Russo, so clearly there was no brains behind the operation. And Kane had the weird, like, what the Jim Bob South Park voice box thing, saying that, if he lost, he would set himself on fire. And I'm like, that could only come from the mind of Vince Russo.
Definitely.
Definitely. And also, Mankind and Undertaker interfered in the match after essentially, I mean, the Undertaker, I was like, fair dues, because he had a broken foot,
Aye.
at the time, but he's the dead man. But considering what happened to Mick Foley, Mankind throughout that match, and he still ran out and did the spot. That is fucking mental, completely and utterly nuts.
I was watching the Broken Skull sessions, and it was the one with Mick Foley, and they were talking about that match, and Steve Austin's like, you guys had that match, and then me and Kane had to go out and follow you, and we were sitting backstage going, what the fuck? How can we follow that? And you two have to come down. How are they going to do that?
Yeah.
Me and Kane were out in the ring, calling the match, going, are they going to come down? Undertaker might come down. He can come down easily. I mean, he wasn't too bad. But that is Mick fine? And like the referee's obviously getting called in his ear. So he's coming. He's just getting his stitches finished. Just keep it going for a bit longer. So they had to actually make the match an extra 5 minutes longer just while he gets his stitches done.
Yeah, stalling.
And all this is going on backstage. And like they're stalling. But by this time, Kane's already actually cut. He's actually saying, I'm bleeding. Because something got in. I think it was like some of the thumbtacks had been cleared. And like he'd fell and one got in and it ripped him and he was bleeding all down his face. He couldn't see out his right eye because there was so much blood. And it's like, how are they going to finish this? And then you see Mick Foley running down with a chair and it's like, how is he alive? And then 2 minutes later you see the Undertaker limping down.
Yeah.
And it's like, what the hell?
That summed up the Attitude Era for me. Those two matches, in fairness. So I will go through kind of for the audience, just a brief structure of what I had planned, because that is a pilot episode, so we will, mess about. But what I was thinking was, like, we'll cover like the kind of the backstory to it, of what's happened. Like, Kevin and I have rewatched the full match, and we'll look at it from our kind of older head perspective. And then we'll also kind of dissect like the aftermath, what we've done, which we've kind of touched on, but we'll go into a wee bit more detail with it. So to start off with, there was really no build up or heat to the match. It was originally meant to be Mankind and Stone Cold for the title, but they'd done two on the bounce. This was meant to be like the third and final, like the decider, but Terry Funk and I think Vince Russo as well had said that, and Vince McMahon had all said, look, I think they're getting sick of it. I don't think so. I don't think that should happen. If we know then what we know now, because I don't know how many times they put Roman Reigns and Brock feckin' Lesnar up against each other, well, then we would have been fine with Mick Foley v Stone Cold for a third time.
I mean, the only reason they started doing Mick Foley and Undertaker is like about 3 weeks before the King of the Ring. It was a tag team Hell in a Cell, and it was Undertaker and Stone Cold versus Kane and Mankind, because Paul Bearer was managing Mankind and Kane at the time. So that's how that came about. And like, no, the Undertaker and Mankind had quite a lot of good spots in that match. They could go solo in that.
Yeah.
So they put that whole thing together in the 3 weeks before King of the Ring.
Yeah, and they'd had like matches beforehand as well in other pay-per-views, and what they were very well received and very well acclaimed. This one had the least kind of build up to it, in terms of, you know, throwing it together in 3 weeks.
Yeah,
because like watching the vignette, like kind of at the start of the match and going through it, and I'm like, there was really, if you were coming in cold, there's really little to sum up why they are fighting. It just looks like they're fighting just because Undertaker bitch slapped Paul Bearer.
Yeah,
that's essentially what it was. And I was like, okay, right, here it is. What? And I was watching the kind of one of the WWE behind the scenes stuff where they interviewed Mick Foley, they interviewed now Mark Calaway, now that he's officially retired. JR, Tim White, who was the referee, and Mick Foley, was insisting on starting at the top of the cage. And Undertaker was like, what the fuck? Like why do this? Because what he said, start top of the cage, and like, oh yeah, and he could throw me off. What he said, like, as a joke, as Mick Foley said as a joke to Terry Funk, and then afterwards he was like, and then I could go through he's like, and then I could go through the cage after that. And they were like, what? Are you serious? What? And obviously, like, during this time, Undertaker has broken his foot. So he's questioned how he's even going to get up the cell. And he's saying, like, to Mick Foley, like, why are you doing this? Why are you going to do this? And Foley was up front, basically saying, like, I think the match is going to be shit. I don't have enough heat on me, because Foley was the heel, I believe. So Foley was the heel. There wasn't enough heat from the build up. He'd watched the first Hell in a Cell with Shawn Michaels Undertaker at Bad Blood, 1997, and was like, we need to. And he's like, I need to top that, and I don't know how. So if we can create enough big bumps, then people will probably look at it as a better match than it's actually going to be. One thing that I will say is that he's right.
Yeah.
One thing, because I noticed, I came up with an analogy for the match. It is the Bill Goldberg of pay-per-view matches. Some big bumps, not much else, but that's what you remember before.
Yeah.
Because if you watched Bill Goldberg WCW Prime, there were basically squash matches, like 3-4 minutes max. And it was all
until William Regal come in and gave him a 6-minute match.
Yeah, that was always fun. But yeah, so it was always the big hits. You know, there was the jackknife powerbomb, there was the spear, something else as well, I can't remember, but there was 3 big hitters. And that's what you would remember it by. You didn't remember anything else, because quite frankly, you couldn't do anything else.
Basically.
And they were in the same boat in this pay-per-view. It was like they took the big bumps. That's what we remember them by.
Yep.
But when you go back and watch the full match, it's pretty shit.
It's a 17-minute squash match.
Yeah.
It's like a match you put at the start of Raw or SmackDown.
It's even saying like 17 minutes in length, but there's only maybe about 5 minutes of action.
If that, yeah.
Yeah. It basically sums up every man's sex life
Mhm.
after 30.
Pretty much.
What, because, what, is it? So, watching it, what, and what, I have to say, like, the music is brilliant. Like both scores for Mick Foley and Undertaker. So you've got like a Schizophrenic for
Hmm.
Mick Foley. You've got Graveyard Symphony, obviously, for Undertaker. Both composed by Jim Johnson, and just beautiful,
Yeah.
beautiful stuff. Absolutely amazing. What, and you see like Mankind coming out, and it's just like right up the top of the cage. And he admits in like, several interviews, not biographies, that beforehand, Vince McMahon had came up to him and said, like, have you been up the cage?
Yeah,
And
yeah, I've been up. I've been up.
he's like,
It's fine.
yeah, I've been
Look,
up.
it's fine. It's fine. No, don't worry about it. I was up earlier
Yep.
today. I
Mm-hmm.
brought it down. I was up. It's when you were in the gym. So,
Yep. What he said, it was like, I've been up, which was the first biggest lie of my career, until the next question where he said, do you think it's safe? And I said,
yes.
yes, it's fine. The second biggest lie of my career. And it
Because
was,
when they're up on top and they're walking around, you can hear the cable ties just going.
yep.
And then when
It's,
Mick Foley
yeah.
goes through the cage, you can actually see him lying on cable ties like that.
Mm-hmm.
They've just literally threw this together with
Yeah.
plastic cable ties.
Yeah, it's because they're littered around him as he lands. Like it's unreal. And it's like so he scales up the like the Hell in the Cell. So for anybody that doesn't know, the cell is about 16 feet high,
Yeah.
about that 15, 16 feet. And he's starting off top of the cage with a steel chair waiting on the Undertaker. Undertaker comes out, and at that point, Mark Calloway is thinking to himself, how the am I going to get up there? But by hook or by crook, I am going to get up there. And you would not be, at that point, you would not have been able to tell there was something wrong with his foot, the way he scaled that cage. I mean, geez, I can't even climb a tree. And he scales a 16-foot cage to get up. And the match starts. But I noticed that there was no match bell.
No,
No,
no.
so technically that match is
Un-
never started. And
no.
yeah. And that so what so it starts off a back and forths. What like Foley gets Mankind gets a couple of chair shots across the back of Undertaker, and this is back when the chair shots were allowed, be real, like because it was like the heavy steel. I remember watching one of those old documentaries where it was like wrestling exposed, and it was guys covered up like with the shadows, and were like the voice changer, like, if you get hit with a chair, you get hit with a chair. There's no protecting that. Well, and I was like, so I'm just watching it back. And I'm like, whoa. And then they start to kind of make their way over, and part of this top of the cell buckles under the weight.
Yeah. See, when I was watching that, I was like, that's going to collapse and they're just going to go.
Mm. So, I saw that and I'm like, whoa. What? And there's an infamous still of it, like where like Mankind has got Undertaker by the hair, and they're leaned forward, and it essentially it looks like he's actually saving him from falling through.
Aye.
What? Because that's probably what in real life what he was doing, just in case. But but it was like holy hell! And no sooner after that, after they dig themselves out of there, back and forth, and the incident that is etched in WWE history happens. The Undertaker rallies Mankind off the top of the cage, 15, 16 foot drop through the Spanish announce table.
Yep.
And they were
And
talking.
and the Spanish announced team. If you actually look, you see them going. It's
Yep. I always felt
Mankind's
bad.
just been thrown on.
I always felt bad for the Spanish announce table because it always went. That was always the one that got hit. It was
Yep.
always the one that got hit at that point. It was never the American announce table. I was like, you're racists. Don't do that to the Spanish. We don't even know if they're actually transmitting in Spanish. We don't have a clue. Well, I just thought that, but until I actually heard them speaking in one pay per view, I genuinely thought they were just window dressing. Like it was just made out to look like there was a Spanish announce table. And that made me obviously feel bad. And so when that bump happens, there are two key things that I think sells it. The first one you'll know as well is JR's commentary. And he is stated on Jim Ross has stated on the record that was legit. That was there was no script. That was genuinely what he thought. He thought he's dead.
Yeah.
Undertaker's at the top of the cage thinking
shit, he's dead.
Jerry King Lawler thinking he's dead. Tim White thinking he's dead. Everybody legs it out from Sergeant Slaughter to Vince McMahon, who was not meant to come out.
No. And you actually hear him screaming, "Get the cage up."
Yep. Because he genuinely thought he is dead.
Mm-hmm.
But the second thing that I think sold it most was that Mick Foley did not move a muscle. So that is why so many people thought he is dead, because he was completely rigid, did not move.
It's because he passed out.
Yeah.
When he falls, there is one picture, and you see when he lands, he's on his back, he's on like his shoulder, but his head is hit off the side, the arm rest on the Spanish announcer's chair. And you know what they're like? They're like hard plastic.
Oh yeah.
So he's fell 16 feet and he's clunked the side of his head near enough his temple. So he's knocked himself out. So for like a good minute and a half, he was knocked out. So he wasn't moving. Yeah. And that's why Vince McMahon and Sergeant Slaughter come down going, what's happened? Is he dead?
Yeah. Basically. That was what, and so as you said, like they came down, and they were like, is he dead? Get that cage up. Undertaker's still at the top of the cage.
As it's moving up.
As it is moving up. Which that is a WrestleMania, well, it's not a WrestleMania, a wrestling moment that I think doesn't get enough credit, because that's in flight as it's coming up. The tragic Owen Hart death has not happened at this point yet.
Yeah, because that's a year later.
That's a year later. But that could have so easily went wrong. Considering what we just talked about with how part of the cell had caved in and it looked like it was just going to go. And he's standing there while it's getting raised even higher. So probably a good 20, 25 feet in the air.
At least.
And he does not break character, not even the slightest. And he said that, Mark Calloway said that he didn't actually know the cage was moving because he was so engrossed in the story and also thinking, I've killed Mick Foley. It's like, because there's no such thing as headsets for the wrestlers. There's no earpieces. He doesn't know what's going on. Yep. He is literally high and dry.
Yeah. And another thing that compounded it for him that Mick Foley was dead is the fact that Terry Funk ran down, because he was one of the producers of that match. Because, you're going to have like a match like that. Who are you going to have to produce it? A hardcore legend like Terry Funk. You need to get somebody that knows about big bumps.
Yep. And in particular, because like it was Terry Funk and Mick Foley that kind of came up with the gist of it.
Yeah.
And those two in a room equals carnage.
Yep.
1000%. And so they go and they get the cage up, they get the stretcher out, load him onto the stretcher. Foley's round at that point, and he's saying that he's hurt his shoulder. His shoulder out of socket.
It's dislocated, yeah.
It's dislocated. He gets on, and he's onto the stretcher. And it looks like, it's game over, match done, because it's been about, I think it's been a good 5 minutes by this point.
Something like that, yeah.
And they've replayed that about 8 times from multitudes of angles. And it looks like that's it. It's going to be, he's getting taken away. Undertaker the cage has been lowered. He starts climbing down. Foley gets up. And says, he's like, I can finish the match. My shoulders popped back in. I'm fine.
It hadn't actually popped back in.
It hadn't. It was bullshit.
It's fine. You see him walking to the ring and it's like that. It's not until later on in the match he goes to pick up the stairs and he goes like that and he can't. And then he walks by The Undertaker and goes, hit me with the stairs. So you see Mick Foley turn like this, and The Undertaker's like, you sure? And you see him going like this with his arm, holding it up, putting it in place, and then he whacks it right off there. So The Undertaker actually relocates Mick Foley's shoulder with the stairs.
Now, again, if there's anything that sums
and this
up
is after they fell through.
And this is that's something else that sums up the Attitude Era and the 90s. My shoulder's dislocated. Hit it with some steel steps and we'll pop it back in. Bang. What? So before that, there is another big bump. What? So Foley's running down. I have no clue how he's scaling that cage with a dislocated shoulder at this point. But his thing was that he was running on adrenaline. I get that from just doing things like, acting and stuff. I remember I was doing panto, and I went over my ankle, or I botched a stage dive. And I was like, oh, that was a bit sore, but I'm fine. Carried on with the rest of the show, and it wasn't until the next day that couldn't walk, still drove to work. And then I was told, why did you drive to work? You have to get to the hospital.
I'm fine.
Was driven to the hospital while it was someone else driving my car there, and they went, good news, it's not broken. Great. Bad news is, you've ruptured all the ligaments in your foot.
Nice.
And I was like, you do realize I've got to go back on stage tomorrow?
You were fine.
No, it wasn't tomorrow. It was that night. It was like, I've got to go back on stage that night. And they were like, right, if we told you not to go on stage, what would you say? I would say, get the fuck, I'm doing it anyway. And they're like, well, on you go, just phone in sick for your day job. And I was like, I think they'll be okay with it because 30 people had bought tickets. They wanted to see it. So yeah, adrenaline definitely can carry you through. Obviously, not in as a severe situation as what's about to happen. He starts climbing the cage. Taker's like, oh crap, I've got to start going again.
With his broken foot.
He was probably thinking, right, a reprieve. Oh crap, I'm still going through with this. They get up. Foley doesn't even have the energy to throw a punch back or to do a 1-2 with The Undertaker because it spent so much energy trying to get up in the cage.
Yep.
And then they plan the spot, the choke slam. Foley couldn't get himself up properly, as he has said. And instead of going bounce and then another choke slam, bounce, and then another choke slam, bounce, which was supposedly meant to lower it down a bit so there wasn't as big a drop. It would have been roughly just above the top rope of the actual ring.
Yeah.
And he would have fallen with that at his back, and it would have been less damage. That was the plan. He just went through in one fell swoop, right down, basically bouncing off at what was at that point in time a concrete mat.
Yep.
To which point, Jerry the King Lawler said, yep, he's dead. And we all thought,
he's dead.
We genuinely just thought, okay, that has happened. And as Undertaker had said as well, he said, if you notice when I do the choke slam, I am not on the mesh, I am on the support. But I was meant to be on the mesh.
Mm-hmm.
And if that had happened, we both would have went through and he would have had a 300-pound me landing on top of him.
Which would have killed him.
Which would have killed him, yeah. 100%. Because the chair that was there as well had also fallen and smashed him in the face. And as we'll talk about in a little bit, something had badly happened to his lip.
Yep.
So he would have had the fall itself, the chair off the face in the injury, and the Undertaker landing on him. They potentially both could have been dead. Because Undertaker would have fallen face first straight into that chair. It's a potential Owen Hart situation before the Owen Hart situation.
Yeah.
But not from 70 feet, but from 16 feet. It still would have killed him.
Definitely, yeah.
And it was just something that he just remembered just looking and going, yep, I have now killed him. And you see that everybody thinks he is dead because
Yep.
they storm the cell.
Yeah.
Everybody is waiting outside thinking, what? Right, we got to be on standby.
Yeah.
That was not meant to happen. Sprinting in.
And the first
Instantly.
person that's there is Terry Funk, and
Again.
he's in Mick Foley's face.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently, Mick Foley said, "I'm fine. I'm winded. Give me 3 to 5 minutes.
Yep.
If you get well, it wasn't like 3. It's like, so give me a few seconds, do something, and like help me.
Yeah, it
Just
was a
let me get my
stall to buy
breath."
time situation.
Aye. So Terry Funk's like, "No bother. I'll take a choke slam after Undertaker."
Yep.
And Mick Foley's like, "Okay."
It's like, all right. So Undertaker somehow is able to get down through that gap.
And you see him.
Yeah, you see the wincing pain when he lands.
Yeah.
When he
because he limps and then he stops instantly. He's like, "No, I'm the Undertaker right now. I can't limp just now. I can limp after the match."
And then, as you said, Terry Funk runs up to the dead man.
And he tells him, he's like, "Mick's fine. Choke slam me. I'm going to slap you." And then he slaps him. Right.
Yep. Because what he basically said, when Terry Funk ran up to him, Undertaker just said,
"Is he all right?
Is he dead?"
That is fine.
And
Choke slam me. Slap.
It's like, no, it's fine. Stall. This is what's happening. And that is it. And then that was it. He just gets, in the words of Mick Foley, choke slammed out of his shoes. And yeah, you watch that back and I was like, that was a pretty brutal choke slam.
It was.
But it's Terry Funk.
The thing is, after that, Mick Foley has said in interviews that the only thing I can remember is after telling Terry Funk to stall for me for a minute, I look over and I'm just thinking to myself, where the hell did these shoes come from?
Yeah. I see
he's not thinking about the deadly injuries that he's just sustained. Where did these shoes come from?
Yep. As stated, he's taken the equivalent of 2 car crashes at this point, and he's more concerned about a pair of shoes. And then one thing that I found what really sums up the character of Mick Foley was Undertaker picks him up because he's wanting and he's wanting to check basically to continue, and he says 2 words to Mick Foley: "Go home." At this point, it didn't look like Mick Foley was going to be able to do anything. It looked like he was just out of it. But the second Undertaker said "go home," his ego, and he's admitted this himself in interviews, his ego took a massive hit because he was like, "I decide when I go home. Not you, not Vince, nobody. I decide when I go home."
And then that's when he called the pile driver on the chair.
The pile driver on that chair, and you hear that the thud of Taker's head. That is sickening. You think of someone like the chair shots that people have taken. The one in particular that I always remembered was the Steve Blackman one. No, not Steve Blackman. Stevie Richards against JBL as revenge for the Blue Meanie.
Yeah.
I heard that and I was like, holy shit.
Yeah. It's like the one that The Rock gives to Mick Foley in their I Quit match.
Yeah.
And it's like straight shots, straight shots straight to his head, his forehead's taking these hits. It's like, how is he alive?
I know. That is basically should have been his autobiography title. How am I still alive?
No, that's Jackie Chan's. That is actually that's what that's called. How am I still alive?
Right. So there was a trademark. That makes sense. But yeah, and it's the same. Mick Foley just basically told The Rock, "Leather me."
Yep.
It was just basically make it count. And it's like, okay, and I remember watching the Beyond the Mat documentary about that I Quit match, and just seeing his kids were there.
Yeah.
And his kid is wailing and screaming and crying like stop hurting my dad, stop hurting my dad.
I know.
And after the match, obviously they go through it, make sure he's okay. And the first person that comes up to him is Dwayne Johnson. What, and like gives him a big hug and says like, I'm so sorry, but your dad's okay, he's fine, come with me, we'll take you through it, you'll get to see him. And he's lying there getting operated on. What, he
Blood
just pop
pouring down his head.
yeah, pops
There's
up,
Vince
he's just like,
McMahon at the other table, blood pouring down his head.
yeah, and what, his son's there, he just pops out, he's like, hey buddy, I'm fine. And I'm like, you are not fine, motherfucker.
Oh.
You're not fine. But God bless him. What, it's just ridiculous, the bumps that he took.
I know.
So we're now at the point where I say I thought this part of the match was the just breathe part of the match. Don't know, a lot still happens in it, but it's where it's more, like punch, bounce off, steps, as you said. Well, it's like they're basically like getting themselves back together, or more importantly, they're making sure they can get Mick Foley back together.
Yeah.
What, and we've already discussed, they popped his shoulder back in with the steel steps. Well, at that point, I was like, okay, what? Because I could remember the ending, like as in like Undertaker pinning, but I couldn't remember much of the bits in between. So I was glad to have this little refresher. And I was like, well, I think that's the main kind of things done. But wasn't there something? But there was something else, and I can't remember it. Cue the thumbtacks.
Yep, thumbtacks.
Yep. And best part, after the match, Mick Foley could not remember getting those thumbtacks out because I was catching up on a couple of podcasts, and one was with Bruce Pritchard. And apparently Mick Foley had went up to him after the match and said, I'm so sorry, I forgot about the thumbtacks. I forgot to get the thumbtacks. And he went,
No, you didn't.
No, you didn't. They're currently in you. They were taking them out with pliers, like him and Sergeant Slaughter were removing them from him as they were speaking. But what Tim White had said, that Foley was kind of staggering a little bit once he got back in the ring, and he went up and he was like, I'm going to stop the match. And Foley just comes at him and just says, where are the tacks? Where are the thumbtacks? And I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh dear. And seeing it all coming out, and the way that Mick Foley talks about the tacks themselves, the shining and the glimmering and the glistening and the lights, that's where I could see part of the Cactus Jack persona in him.
Yeah.
Because he just seems so enthralled by something that's going to cause him, spoiler alert, a lot of fucking damage.
But I think by this point, you've already had the shot of him turning to the camera, blood pouring everywhere, with his tooth sticking out his nose.
Yep. At this point, we had we had that, and this is something that I just forgot about, because we were going to circle back to it, and I was like, I'd forgot about it, but thank you for reminding me. And several people thought that was a booger. They thought it was just some snot from his nose, Undertaker included, until when they were doing the strikes and they got seen a bit closer, and it's like, that's his fucking tooth. And Mick Foley, being Mick Foley when he was in the corner, thought, wouldn't it be a great visual if my tongue was sticking out of the part of the lip that was busted wide open, with a smile on his face? And yeah, even like and GR was like, I was like, he likes it, and we're like, of course, I'm pretty sure he doesn't like it, but just like, he was just thinking this is going to be a great visual. He was essentially like becoming a Jackson Pollock painting at this point.
Yep.
It was like, whoa, because it was one of his incisors, wasn't it? It just went through when he landed, and right up his nose.
Lodged in his nose.
Yep. It is something that is another thing that lives in infamy. And the most ironic parts of this match so far is that there have been no points where it's been the Undertaker that has lived in infamy with this match. aside from the one that I think's underappreciated, which is him rising at the top of the cage.
Mm-hmm.
What it's been all Foley. It's been Undertaker's been doing the damage,
Yeah.
but we always remember it as Mankind, Mick Foley, that it happens to.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get to the choke slam. But before that, something I'd actually forgotten was Mankind is on Undertaker's back trying to choke him out, and he just
he's got him with the mandible claw.
Yeah.
And Tim White's lifting Undertaker's arm and he gets to two. So that's how they're going to end it. Are we going to see the thumbtacks?
Mm-hmm. And up, round, and back slam right down into the thumbtacks. And that's, I mean, after that's the choke slam, not into the tacks. But I thought the one where he just lands back first into them was more painful because, again, 300 pounds, what straight, what crushing you while your back is landing on thumbtacks.
Yep.
And when he does, obviously, and Mick Foley's doing the whole writhing and stuff,
mm-hmm.
He's writhing into more thumbtacks.
Yep.
And I'm like, dude, I appreciate the sell, but go the other way. Go the other way to sell it. Don't sell that way. You're just asking for trouble. You're going to take your eye out.
No. And see if you actually look, see when Undertaker gets up, he's already got some in his elbow, but he puts his hand down on more, and you see his face going, as he's getting up because the camera goes quite close to him, and you see him, and you can see them, and he does that, and he wipes them off because he knows he's got to do a choke slam with his hand.
And he does said choke slam.
And it's one of the highest choke slams I've seen ever.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, he got some height. That must have been even sorer because he's already got about 600 thumbtacks in his back, and now he's landing on about another 600.
Yeah. I think in his head it was like he was making up for the fact that he botched the choke slam that went through the cage, even though that botch probably saved his life.
Saved him life, aye.
Because as he mentioned, if he'd got that high, he would have over rotated and at best would have paralyzed himself.
Yeah.
So it was like he was going, okay, I'll make up for it. Use the thumbtacks. Woo! Down. And at that point, we're like, okay, just end
pin
the
him.
match.
Pin him. Come on.
Just pin him. No, there's still one more thing to come. Well, the signature moves. The infamous Tombstone Piledriver. Down it comes. 1, 2, 3. Match over. Thank Christ. But the story doesn't really end there.
Nope.
At least not. We'll talk about also Kane and Austin in a minute, but everybody's obviously straight in, get Foley sorted, get him on a stretcher, get him the hell out of there.
And he says, no, I don't want a stretcher. I'm walking out.
Yeah, because he asks if he's already been on a stretcher tonight, and they say yes. And he says, I can't be on a stretcher twice. And chooses to walk out. How the fuck was he able to do that? I have no earthly idea. He is basically he was a machine. And he said it himself, what he lacked in, kind of wrestling style or the quote unquote, the look and stuff like that, he made up for with the pageantry and the drama. Holy Christ, that was Oscar worthy material. It's in terms of, making up for the pageantry. Christ almighty.
I remember a quote, I think it was Taz saying that Mick Foley is one of the only people that you could send into a ring himself and he could do a match with himself for 25 minutes and you would be enthralled.
Yep. 100%.
And it's so true. There's very few people, especially right now, watching the wrestling, there's very few people that could do that. I mean, there's a lot of people from the Attitude Era that could. Mick Foley was one. Al Snow.
Definitely. The Rock.
Perry
Austin.
Saturn.
Perry Saturn, yeah.
Underrated, and something happened backstage. He turned somebody the wrong way, and then he got given a shit gimmick.
No, what
with
happened?
Mop.
What happened was he was doing one of the Sunday night shows. And I think it was one of the Tough Enough winners at the time, or one of the people that was in Tough Enough, and they were doing that. And basically, was too stiff with him, and Perry Saturn legitimately beat the shit out of him.
Well, it's Perry Saturn.
Yeah, like on like I think it was still Sunday Night Heat at this point. And legit straight shots battered the utter crap out of him. He was suspended. Then eventually came back, and they were just like, "You're just gonna have to eat shit," and it was the mop gimmick. And that was that. That was the end of Perry Saturn from that point, because a Tough Enough winner like basically gave him a stiff shot, and he thought, "You little shit," and leathered them.
Yeah,
it was very, very interesting. So we get backstage after the match. Mick Foley has repeatedly said this one about from Vince McMahon comes up to him and says, "I can't thank you enough for what you've done for this company, but I never want to see anything like that again." Of course, that's total bullshit, because we all know what comes after that.
Yeah.
But again, as I was listening to Bruce Pritchard's podcast, that was partly one of the reasons why he didn't want to sign Mick Foley to WWF, because at that point it was still the early night, it was before the Attitude Era. And he didn't want that type of style impacting wrestling. And the ultimate irony is that if it wasn't for that and that style of wrestling and that character, they would have lost the Monday Night Wars to WCW. Because the thing that's turned the tide, in my opinion, was Mankind winning the title.
Yep, because that's what it was. It's because Monday Night Raw was taped, WCW was live, and here's the rundown of what's happening on Monday Night Raw. And Mick Foley's winning the championship. That's going to put butts in seats. And then everybody that was watching was going, Mick Foley, but he was Cactus Jack. And then they did turn over.
They lost 600,000 people after that. And it just showed you the power of Mick Foley.
Yeah.
Because, this was a technique that WCW had done before. And they just let their cockiness get the better of them. They thought, right, we'll do it again. And that's it. But they underestimate how much people love an underdog.
Yeah.
How much they absolutely love it. And they're like, wait, Mick Foley's not the typical Vince guy. He's not like your Hogan, your Luger, your Ultimate Warriors, or he's not one of those guys. He's like us.
Yeah.
He was in ECW. He was here in WCW. I want to see what the fuck happens. How does he get his title?
He got his ear ripped off in Japan.
Yeah. And they're like, how did this guy get the title? I want to see this. Swarm.
Yeah.
And that was that. And again, Mick Foley basically saved the company.
Yeah.
And that just makes it so ironic with the fact that Vince didn't want to sign him, and doing matches like that, which Vince was scared to do, was ultimately what saved his ass.
Yeah.
Because I keep thinking WCW was on the slide at this point in general quality, but was still beating WWF.
Yeah.
See if that moment hadn't have happened. Do you think that the WWF could have went under?
I think it probably could have. There's a whole nother video about the Monday Night Wars that we can do. There's an entire series. There's an entire series we could do about the Monday Night Wars.
There's loads of them out there. For anybody that does want to do them before we do them, highly recommend checking out Cultaholic Wrestling. They're absolutely fantastic with these documentaries. So there's lots that we can say and lots that we can discuss. But what I think probably would have happened is WWF would have went down, but WCW would have just went down right after it. along with ECW, and there would be no wrestling. It'd be back to
Yeah,
the indie territory days. I
yeah.
don't think it would have recovered. So
It
in a
might
way,
it,
for the
it might not have
overall,
it might not have completely died. It might have sort of became a territory again, the
yeah,
way it was, and
yeah,
it would take a long, long time to have built it back up. It would probably have just been like getting to like right now
yeah,
that they'd have actually built it back up to what it was back in '98.
yeah, I would say so. What? But yeah, and as we've discussed, the story doesn't end there. What? So obviously he's backstage. He's getting he gets 14 stitches in his lip.
Yep.
What? He's getting Sergeant Slaughter and Bruce Pritchard are with pliers getting all the thumbtacks out of him. What? Stone Cold, Steve Austin, and Kane are having their match, thinking how are they going to get out there? What? We're like, okay, as you said, okay, maybe Taker, but I don't think Mick Foley's coming. What? And apparently they had a guy. He was like he was basically a kind of like chiropractor guy,
Mm-hmm.
well, as well as like an actual doctor. But this like chiropractor guy had been used by like lots of like famous people as well as guys like Vince Russo and stuff. And he would basically like he would torture you, but you would feel amazing afterwards and be like, right, I can do anything. So
Mm-hmm.
instead of taking putting the WWE clients or WWF clients at this point to taking them out to his place and getting them out there for it, we're like, why don't we just pay the guy to come with us?
Yeah.
And whoever wants to use him can. So they had him also working on Mick Foley. And like I said, somehow he's able to come out, steel chair in hand. What? If that was me, I would be looking at a steel chair with PTSD after it came at me and knocked my insiders into my nose. But Mick Foley is no ordinary man.
Yeah.
He runs out. He does the spot. Taker comes out. He does the spot. What? Bursts obviously Stone Cold open. What?
Just the timing with that as well. It's the fact that Mick Foley's been concussed twice in that
Mm-hmm.
match,
Yeah, a minimum of twice.
minimum of twice,
Yeah.
and it's precision timing to duck
Mm-hmm.
when two people are swinging chairs at you and you can only see one of them
Yep. And I would
at
be
the best of
surprised if he could.
times.
Yeah, and I would be surprised if he could actually see in general. I would have
I
been
know.
seeing like 4 or 5 different takers at that point because I would have been so loopy. Well, it's crazy. And he was still able to duck. Taker cracks Austin. What does the blade job
Yep.
and pours a gusher. What and
It's, I've heard him talk about that. He's like, I was supposed to cut up here, but the way I fell, I couldn't get my hand up because
yeah,
people would have seen it. So he was like, and he cuts just
yeah,
like there above his eyebrow. He was supposed to do it like here,
yeah.
where his hairline used to be, as he likes to
Mm-hmm.
say. But I couldn't get my hand up, so it's like, and you see him, he's there, and he's like trying to get it back, and he's thinking like, no, he just chucks it,
Yeah.
and
And
then
it's
you see
just like,
Kane at the side. Kane at the
mm-hmm,
side catches it and puts it under the ring because he's in
mm,
the corner and he sees the blade, so he moves it,
yep,
and it's like, God, the things you see when you actually know
yeah.
how
Well, you know
how
what's going
they
on.
put things together, and it's like, and you're watching for it. It's like, oh, right there,
Yep.
there.
Mm-hmm. And then obviously ref stars round, notices, oh, Stone Cold's basically turned the ring red. Kane
Yep.
wins. He's got the title. What? Vince up in the box for Sable. Clappy, clappy, clap, clap, clappy. What? Pay-per-view ends. And again, I feel so sorry for every match that was on that pay-per-view,
Yep.
Stone Cold included, because it was overshadowed by essentially
Yep.
3 bumps.
Yep.
Well, 2 of them we know what are the main ones, but what would you say, in your opinion, would be the third bump if you had to pick a third?
If I had to pick the third, I'd probably say the thumbtacks, the first one,
The first one with the back
with
in the
Taker
back.
just jumping like that,
Mm-hmm.
because not only is Mick Foley, £300, landing on thumbtacks.
Mm.
He's get the Undertaker, who was about £300 at that time as well,
Mm-hmm.
landing on him.
Yep.
And it's like, oh, I mean,
Yeah.
just landing on the thumbtacks for the choke slam.
Mm-hmm.
It's just his own momentum that's taking him down. It can spread out, but when it was the
Mm-hmm.
Undertaker, he's had to be like that so
Yeah.
that he can protect the Undertaker.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like the entire weight of both of them,
Yep.
and that I think is the worst one.
Yeah. I
But
agree.
the choke slam, um, onto the thumbtacks, it's like I said, one of the highest ones I've seen
Mm-hmm.
to somebody so big. I mean, they were like equal in weight, and he
Mm-hmm.
kicks him up
Yeah.
past his own height, and it's like,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah. And it's also the fact that, like, Mick Foley's getting the assist because he's got to jump to help get to that height.
Mm-hmm.
And again, he is taking some major damage by this point, and somehow he is able to go, okay, I botched the first one. Let's go for the second. What in between both of them? What,
Yeah.
like I say, the height. I mean, I think in terms of like, the pop culture, what the choke slams the third bump, but I agree with you that the back is
Yeah.
the third bump. Well, that's the one that I'm just like, holy shit.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when you watch it back, especially now that we're growing, and I'm like, oh man, that is no wonder he needed a chiropractor.
I know.
Well, that was brutal. Well, I think what was it? I think it was 4 stars. I think Dave Meltzer gave it.
4 stars, yeah.
Yeah. Well, thoroughly deserved, obviously.
Yeah.
Well, but when you were watching it back, now that we're grown men with like families and that of our own, how do you rate the match?
It's a bit controversial, but I'm going to say it's probably only about a 3 as
Ooh.
like an actual wrestling match when you compare it to a lot of other Hell in a Cell matches that are spectacular.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like that one's like, I mean, even Undertaker, he said, I would only give that a 2 himself.
Mm.
He's like, it's not one of the better matches because, I was going into it injured. Mick was going into it not 100% because something had happened to him like the night before or something.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like they weren't 100%. They gave it, 1,000,000%.
Oh, aye.
They went in and they done what they had to do. And even though I'd say it's only like a 3-star match, it outshone the entire event.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
And I actually watched the entire thing last night, from
Mm.
start to finish, and a lot of the other matches are really good. It starts
Mm.
off with the Head Shrinkers
Mm-hmm.
and Taka Michinoku
Yeah.
versus
Is it
Kai
Kai
and
Tai?
Tai,
Mm-hmm.
and it's such a good match.
Yeah,
They
that's
were
the type
such
of
an underrated team, the Headbangers, I think.
yeah, and that type of match is actually something that they do now.
Mm-hmm.
What with the style and everything, it was decades ahead of its time. I
Yeah,
mean, it was stuff that people they were already doing in like New Japan and stuff like that. But for an American brand, it was still the brawler style.
yeah,
What at that point, and again, like there was some when you look at some of the talent that was on that card.
yeah.
Like I say, you've got like your kind ties, then you had like Road Dogg, Billy Gunn, what The Rock, Ken Shamrock, what Stone Cold Steve Austin Kane,
Jeff
what
Jarrett.
Jeff Jarrett as well.
Yeah,
There were so many, and even having China as an enforcer at
yeah,
this point. What and you've still got and you've still got Nation of Domination at this point. So like Godfather before it became Godfather, like Mark Henry, all those kind of ones. So there's a plethora of talent there.
yeah,
And other ones that would go on to be future talent. And like someone that a lot of people as a wrestler wrote off in Mick Foley,
mm-hmm.
what going up against one of the best in the business and was, further cementing his legacy.
Yeah,
What they just tore literally tore the house down. Like,
Yep.
see when he takes the first bump when he goes off the cage, it's like the audience don't know how to react.
Yeah.
Like they're like, whoa, is he actually dead? Like, we do not know.
Mm-hmm.
It's a kind of stunned silence. Like, and
Because
you're seeing some of the reactions in the crowd as well, like throughout, and they are genuinely concerned.
yeah,
But then see when it's the second bump, the one that most likely should have killed him, by that point, they've bought in, they're baying for blood.
yeah,
The entire
yeah.
crowd just goes in a huge uproar.
There's actually at one point,
Mm.
see when he's been put on the stretcher. It's like I was listening to it with my earphones on, and I had the volume up really high so I could hear the
Yeah.
audience as well in the
Mm-hmm.
front row. And as Mick Foley's being carted away, and he's still half dazed, you
Yeah.
hear somebody saying, "Finish the match, Mick," and it's one of
And
the audience. It's like he's nearly killed himself, and you're
yeah,
wanting him to get back in.
it's nuts. It's like,
It's like it's like
but
they've
again,
seen it. He's on the stretcher, so he's still alive. It's like, go finish the match. We paid to see you finish this.
yeah. It was like a still game thing. It was like where the hockey player goes through the window, throws through the plate glass. He goes, I mean, that boy's all padded. It's that same kind of deal. They're
It
like,
is, aye.
it's like finish the match. He's half dead. It's like, and you want to finish him off. Like, and off he goes, like, all the way up and stuff. Well, and I remember I was watching one of the inside the ropes things with Mick Foley, and he was talking about when he was at a convention or something. What, and a guy, kind of cowboyish guy, came up to talk to him. What, and he's like that Hell in a Cell match. I know the truth. That table protected your fall, didn't it? And it's just like, holy shit. Well, and Mick responds by saying, yes, it was a magic table. And I'm just like, what the fuck? It's like he was saying, like, people still come up to him and ask him, did it hurt? You tried falling 16 feet into into a table, which, yes, cushions the fall slightly, but it's still fucking sore.
But still a wooden table.
Exactly. There's still monitors in there from the Spanish announce table. What? He so could have easily bumped his head on one of them. He easily could have, like, done himself even more damage. Again, like you said, his head bounced off the chair from the Spanish announce table. What? And yeah, knocked him out. So yeah,
Or he could have
of course it
actually
would
just
fucking.
he could have actually just torpedoed himself right down, head
Mm-hmm.
first.
Yeah, and would have and see if he'd overshot it. He would have landed in the concrete.
Mm-hmm.
Dead.
Yeah.
Or
Or
actually, Mick Foley 3/4 dead.
I
Mm.
mean, there's so many ways that if he fell wrong, I mean, if he'd like overshot it a bit and he'd like landed like sitting position, that could have been like his coccyx completely crushed and
Mm-hmm.
like the bottom discs. That would have been him
Yeah.
paralyzed for the waist down.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, I say, when you watch it back now, knowing what we know about, like CTE and all that kind of stuff, what realistically, Mick Foley should not be alive.
No.
What, let's call a spade a spade. Like, Mick Foley has taken hell of a bumps throughout his career. I watched before we came on, there was a bit, and it was like, most infamous Mick Foley bumps. And obviously, that's on it.
Yeah.
But some of the other ones, I mean, one where Big Show throws Mick Foley roughly about 50 feet into a grave.
Yeah.
In a buried alive match. That was fucking painful. When he's battling Triple H in one of the boiler room brawls, and he falls off and lands in a heap. Another one where The Rock knocks him off into the electrical tables and the lights cut.
Yeah. It's because they were actually supposed to be further down and they had the fake electrical table,
Yeah.
that had a charge set on it,
Mm-hmm.
but they got their timing off and they actually went through the one that controlled the actual lights,
Mm-hmm.
which is why the lights went off at that section. And
Yeah.
Vince McMahon's in the back going, "What the hell?" He was nearly going to come out at that point as well
Mm-hmm.
and just start shouting at them as they're
Yeah.
having a match.
Mm-hmm.
And
Much like
I think it was Pat Patterson's like, look, they've done the spot, they've done it the ring bit, they still hit the spot. You
mm-hmm.
can't get angry at them. They've done their
Yeah.
spot.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, right, okay. Because I think
Yeah.
Pat Patterson was one of the only people that could calm Vince McMahon down.
Yeah. Definitely. What? And even then, like, and even after that, he had the 3 stages of hell match with Triple H, the Cactus Jack persona. Again, through the cell, but gets the timing right. The ring's been improved by that point and goes through it. What? I remember watching that at the time thinking, what the fuck just happened? What? And even as recently as what was it, 2000? What? I think it was 2004 or 2003. Randy Orton came on the scene. What? And when he was doing the Legend Killer, took Mick Foley on, and oh my god, the amount of punishment he took.
Yeah.
And Orton was terrified.
He thought, I'm going to end up killing this guy.
Yeah. Well, because he had such respect for him. Well, he was like, I don't want to injure you. He's like, just fucking do it. Well, and then he has a WrestleMania street fight match with Edge. Edge spears him
through a flaming table.
Through a flaming table. Well, and the guy's what in his 40s by this point, minimum.
Minimum, yeah.
Like Christ Almighty, this guy is. I'm starting to think he might be a zombie. A very intelligent zombie, a very eloquent zombie. What?
Yeah.
Which makes me wonder, how is his brain not mush? Because of the chair shots he took, what? These still got the equivalent of the chair shots of, is that like Benoit would have taken, and we'll know how that turned out. Luckily, Foley is made of sterner stuff, and again, he's such an articulate, polite, well-spoken gentleman. And there's very few gentlemen these days. And considering the amount of abuse he took, he should be drooling right now.
Definitely.
And he is not. He is, and he's probably in some of the best shape of his life.
Yeah, because he was feeling a bit down, and then he contacted DDP. He said, "Look, I need some help."
Yep.
And he's like, "Come down, stay for a week. I'll show you what to do."
Mm-hmm.
And he says that he's still kept it up to this day, which is why he's still physically able to move.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, DDP is basically like the savior of the golden age of wrestling, essentially.
Yeah.
Because he's prolonged Jericho's career. Like, we all know the miracle he done with Jake the Snake.
I know it's
like Mick Foley as well. Like, he is just he can single-handedly save people. I love DDP. I think he's amazing.
I mean, he saved Scott Hall up to a point, but again, Scott Hall's just his demons caught up with him.
Yeah.
Sadly,
yeah. Because sadly the same as Eddie Guerrero.
Yeah.
He turned his life around, but the damage had sadly been done by that point. Gone too soon, obviously a tragedy. At least Scott Hall had a few more miles on the clock. But still sad.
Yeah.
That it happened. But again, look at the names some of the names that we've just mentioned. Eddie Guerrero, Chris Benoit, Scott Hall, Test as well. China. All these names that realistically should outlive Mick Foley.
Yeah. Well, there was a Kevin Nash's son as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like he's like ages below us.
Yeah. The same with David Foley.
Yeah.
No, David Flair. Flair, sorry.
David Flair, yeah.
Well, I got my F's mixed up. Apologies. But still, David Flair's son as well.
Yeah.
Loads of people like, what's another one as well? Brian Pillman.
Brian Pillman,
Like,
yeah.
like loads of guys that really, like, in any other circumstance, in any other line of work, would still be alive today.
Yep.
Like, and Mick Foley has outlasted them all.
Yeah.
What? He is definitely a breed that you will never see again. Like,
Yeah.
it really is like a dude love fest because he
As
is just a dude. And what? And I rewatched actually the Royal Rumble where he came out 3 times in his different personas, and I was like, only he could get away with it.
I've always said that they should have sent him out just as Mick Foley as well.
Yeah, and had
They should
4.
have just sent him out.
Yeah, they should have just like what had him out as well, and just had it all. But by that point, like they weren't really embracing actual Mick Foley. It was still, I think he was still a kind of a kayfabe style. But
Yeah.
oh my god, it was just a two great people who worked well together, who had great chemistry, who knew how to handle each other, in a wrestling capacity.
Yeah.
Undertaker has said, like, Mick Foley's one of the few people that he would realistically confide in. If need be, like, Mick Foley holds Undertaker in such a high esteem as well, and rightly
Yeah.
so. For both. I think if it had been any other 2 people, or even just like taking one of them out of the equation, even if it was meant to be like Mankind and Stone Cold,
Mm-hmm.
I still do not think that it would be as fondly remembered as it is
No.
today.
No.
I really don't think so. I think there'd be a couple of things to talk about, but I think it was a point in time that it had to happen the way it did. And
Yeah.
we're just very grateful that thankfully relatively unscathed throughout.
Yeah.
Well, we have covered King of the Ring 1998, Undertaker v Mankind, Hell in a Cell. And the pilot episode of Raw as Ginger is complete.
Yep.
Yeah, I've got to admit, it's been brilliant just reminiscing about some of the good old days of wrestling.
Yep.
Well, I've thoroughly enjoyed it. As usual, pleasure having you on. We will be looking at some of the next episodes that we can talk about. Once we've built up a few under our belt, we'll get the audience in and see what ones they want us to cover, and we can cover them as well.
Yep.
So until next time, I've been Andrew Durnan. It's been Kevin Tierney. And like Raw is War, Raw is Ginger. It's signing off.